Okay, welcome back to the channel and to another running night review video. In this case, the running night in question takes place at Newbury MRC Railway Club, my local club, and as you can see from the date, it took place quite a while ago, and it's taken me a good bit of time to get the video up on YouTube. We've moved away for this one from our usual steam-hauled train to another one of my favourites. This is a sort of representation of a kind of late 20s, early 30s Metropolitan Railway train, electric loco haulage, and this again is one of those trains that I've had the bits for quite a while, and I've run it quite a few times at our running nights, and it really is a particular favourite of mine, one that I really quite like, and one that's a bit different. Okay then, well, let's have a close-up look at some of the kit here, starting with the loco. Now this, I think I can safely say, is probably one of my favourite logos. It really is a beautiful bit of kit. It's made by Heljan, the Danish company, model number 9000, and this is a model of a class of Bo-Bo electric locos that were ordered by the Metropolitan Railway in about 1922, or slightly before 1922, I think. I believe I'm right in saying that they initially were meant to be rebuilds of existing locos, but when they got to the factory said, look, we'd be throwing so much of the original loco away, we might as well go for some new builds, and that's what they did. This is number 20, which I believe was the highest numbered one. I think there's a batch of 20 and this was the last one, and this one went into service 1923. It's shown here in the original and unnamed livery with just got the number on it. Later on it gained a name. This one, it was called Christopher Wren, and according to Wikipedia it lasted till 1954 when it had an accident and was withdrawn. These locos were used, I believe the idea was that you had electric traction out from the city centre, from Baker Street and similar, out to a certain point, and then steam engines would take over when the electrification ran out. Now you can see one thing I do particularly like about this is if you look inside the front cab there, it has a sort of greeny blue tint to it, which is actually very sort of prototypical. If you can see that's one of these preserved in the London Transport Museum in Covent Garden, and if you go and see it, it does have that sort of very same greeny blue tint inside the cab there, mainly because all the stuff inside is painted in a sort of greeny blue colour, and it gives the whole thing a little greeny blue glow, which looks really cool. As I said, this is the Metropolitan livery. It's the very first livery I had. In 1928, they all became property of London Transport. As I said, there's two preserved, number 5 in the Covent Garden Museum, and number 12 is out and about on the network somewhere. This model was announced in about March 2014. It arrived in the shops in about September 15, so just over a year, which is pretty quick by these modern standards. And that's when I bought mine. This one came from Hatton's. It's actually one of only 2 Heljan locos that I own. The other one is of exactly the same class, and it's a model of number 19 in the same livery. So I'm nothing if consistent / unoriginal. So moving on to the first coach in the rake. This is it's a Hornby model, or at least it was produced during the period of Hornby manufacture. But of course, what it really is a repainted or recoloured version of an old Triang clerestory coach. The Triang original was originally done in Great Western colours and came out in about 1961-ish. This one is a little bit later. It dates from somewhere around 1972-73, and it was done in a sort of faux LNER livery. Using the same method they used to do their Thompson coaches, which they'd done a few years earlier. This one is pretty much typical of its period, really. It has these sort of white rimmed wheels, which are very common around that time. It's got the contemporary coupling, and that's really not a great deal to say about it, really. I mean, honestly, it's not really based on any particular prototype, so the number 61456 is basically just sort of fantasy, really, but it looks nice. It's got that nice sort of clerestory non-corridor appeal to it. I mean, the bogies are basically the same as what they put on their on their Mark I coaches from the same sort of period, so bogies are complete fantasy. Of course, they really should have some running boards on them too, but they don't. But never mind, it's really a nice little piece of kit. It's very lightweight, so it's very easy to tow. And it falls on the floor easily as well. Nice and free running, with their slightly more modern wheels, and there you go, really. They did do some later ones, apparently, in the 80s. They sort of redid this again, got the same mould out and did another LNER run, but they've got much bigger numbers, and when you see them, they kind of look, I think they look a bit sort of childish. So I think the ones with the smaller numbers look a bit nicer. The catalogue number was R24, by the way. I got this one from the Cheltenham Model Centre in about April 2018. Okay then, so moving on to the final three coaches in the rake. These are all manufactured sometime in the sort of early to mid 70s by a company called Graham Farish. Now, these are best described, I think, as generic grouping era coaching stock, in that there were two types. There was the corridor type and the non-corridor type, and I've got both examples of both here. And Graham Farish made these exact same coaches in all four of the big four liveries: LMS, LNER, Southern Region Group, and Great Western Railway. And whilst they are basically representation or accurate representations of absolutely nothing, they are rather nice when you get sort of a rake of them running behind a locomotive, and if you don't look too closely, they really do sort of capture the look and feel of the thing, if not the actual close-up detail, if you like. The word on the street, or the accepted wisdom, I suppose, is that the corridor versions are probably most closely related to sort of Maunsell stock from the southern region, whereas the non-corridor ones are probably more closely related to LMS stock, probably Stanier. Yeah, in general, they are generic representations of grouping era stock. Quite a topical thing right now, because of course in the last couple of years we've had both Hornby and Rapido do generic pre-grouping four-wheelers and six-wheelers, and I think Rapido are currently doing a generic pre-grouping bogie coach as well. So generic things are nothing new, and then Graham Farish were doing it way ahead of everyone else. I mean, the factory from which these all emerged was on the south coast of England, a place called Holton Heath, which is about 2 to 3 miles away from where I grew up in Poole. And as a result, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for these particular coaches. Obviously, Graham Farish mainly nowadays associated with Engage, but of course back in the 70s, up to about I think possibly even to the early 80s, they were still doing double O gauge stock. And yeah, so certainly when I was growing up, we had quite a few of these on my dad's layout, mainly in LNER and Great Western Railway liveries, and I grew up thinking these were really rather fun. In this case, we've got two examples of the corridor composite, first third composite coach, model number 10622, and the fictitious running number is 75674. The third coach is of the again, it's the first third composite, but it's a non-corridor type. Running number, catalogue number 10602, and fictitious running number is 52347. I'm not bothered to look up whether those numbers actually relate to real LNER coaches, but I can absolutely guarantee that they would look pretty much nothing like this, apart from the livery, obviously. These particular ones I bought as part of a sort of job lot of Farish coaches back in 2011 from eBay, They came to me actually in really nice nick, because I mean, over the years, certainly the white roofs can go yellow due to UV exposure, and the edges of the roofs are quite fragile, as are the buffers actually. But certainly you see lots of them where the edge of the roof here has just started to be nibbled away by rough handling. All of these, however, are in really nice nick. I don't think they had a lot of work. I don't think they had a lot of running before they came to me. And as long as the track work, and they're quite light, so they're not very tolerant of rough track. They will derail if you go over rough track too much. But with decent track work, such as we have down at the Model Railway Club, these sort of glide along quite happily. They're quite lightweight, as I say, they're quite free running, so you can get together a rake of quite decent length and not have to have a super powerful engine to pull it. So you know, I say you see a rake of these behind the Flying Scotsman, it doesn't look bad at all, even though if you look too closely, you notice that they aren't very close to LNR coaches at all. And of course, for our purposes on this video, we are actually saying, well, look, they actually are a fairly tolerable representation of Metropolitan Railway coaches. Of course, they haven't got that wonderful sort of semicircular door pattern, which is quite characteristic of a lot of Metropolitan Railway coaches. But yeah, they are rather good things. One thing that's always struck me, and particularly growing up in the 80s, is that particularly these non-corridor ones, as soon as I saw those, you know, my first thought was, well, wait a second, they look a lot like Annie and Clarabel from Thomas the Tank Engine. And of course, if you look at pretty much the first picture we see of Annie and Clarabel, is that they are in fact, as you will see, is that they are in fact bogie coaches, and I think something like that actually is a pretty decent representation of that. Certainly, I think that's a lot more like what Reverend Audrey had in his mind than some of the stuff that Hornby have put out over the years with their sort of four-wheel coaches that they insist on playing as Annie and Clarabel. Okay, that's my rant over. I apologise for that, and we'll get back to the video now. Okay, and we're back at the Railway Club, and I think I must have turned the control knob down a little bit, because it's now running a bit more slowly, a little more sedately, and I think probably a bit more in keeping with what we're meant to be representing here. As you can see, a few other bits and bobs whizzing along in the background. And there we see our train from sort of almost ground level. Quite nice. You can really see that green glow in the front cab there, which, as I mentioned before, is quite prototypical, and gives the loco a certain atmosphere to see it running. And you can imagine the hissing and the sparks and things whizzing around inside it. Hopefully not too many sparks for the engine driver. Just in the background there, you can see a full-length HST set. There's a chap at the club who seems to specialise in these kind of things, and when you get the full 8-coach HST rake with full-length or scale-length scale-length cars or coaches, it's quite an impressive thing. Not quite my cup of tea, but still impressive nevertheless. I've got no idea what that sort of dark blue thing that keeps whizzing around at high speed behind us is. It seems to be doing about 3 laps of the circuit too, so yeah, to each one of ours. But, I'm sure someone will tell me what it is in the comments. But the person that owns it sure does like running it fast, and in general it does cope pretty well with the track. And when it comes off in spectacular fashion. Yeah, get back to ours. It's plodding along there quite nicely. Oh, and just in the back there, I don't know if you saw the Great Western pannier tank whizzing along. It wouldn't be Newbury MRC Club if there wasn't something Great Western whizzing around. So there's our fix for this video, if you like. The Metropolitan livery is a really lovely colour scheme. I know a couple of years back they painted a couple of BR Class 20s in it, I saw them up at the Midland Railway Centre, and they were truly beautiful things to behold. And then a bit later on, Backman brought out models of them, and I was not quite first in the queue, but I was pretty early in the queue to get a pair of those, because Metropolitan livery really does suit a lot of things, and Class 20s look good in it as well. Maybe that'll be a subject for another future video. And of course, many people I'm sure will be wanting to sort of tell me off here, because I'm running what should a loco that really needs either 3 or 4 rails to run properly and want to receive power. And of course I'm running it on 2-rail track where there's no representation at all of any 3rd or 4th rail. There's a somewhat vertiginous shot there. Apologies if that's making you quick giddy. There we are, back to normal. Yeah, I think many years ago I remember reading an article about the preserved number 12 Sarah Siddons, which they had adapted so it could run on more of the London Underground network than it used to, and the adaptation involved either going from a 3-rail pickup to a 4th-rail pickup, or vice versa. I can't quite remember which way around it was, but yeah, in here obviously sadly no representation of 3rd or 4th rail, but I don't think that massively degrades from the image of the thing just trundling around and just generally looking very nice. Oh, it's Class 25 in the background there, with some completely inappropriate coaches. And there we go. Oh, there's that fast thing again. Thanks for watching. Cheers.